The Legends of Land Show with Brandon Parker. Deconstruct the tactics of world-class land investors and learn tools to build a seven-figure land business. The Legends of Land Show is starting now.
This is Brandon Parker. Welcome to another episode of the Legends of Land Show, where it's my job to deconstruct world-class investors, how they think about business, and approach strategy as a land investor. My guest today is Drew Haney. Drew started in land in 2020 when he flipped 300 cheap desert squares, and then he got into funding, and he's had funded 150 plus flips. Currently, he has transitioned into subdivides and has 6 or 7 subdivides going as we speak. From a young age, Drew realized his definition of success was unique compared to his peers. He aimed not for just financial freedom, but also to live a life rooted in faith and family values. Drew got his MBA in 2015, then got a certification in financial management from Cornell University, served our country as an Army officer, and is the owner of Rooster Capital LLC, a funding company that has successfully funded over 150 deals and counting. Drew's humble upbringing taught him not only the value of hard work, but the importance of family and relationships, which is an interesting segue into something else that Drew does, which is hosts conferences and events. One of those coming up that you'll hear about is Milk and Honey, the Supercars and Land Investing Conference. It's in Colorado. I'm actually going to that. And at the end, you'll hear a little bit about that, but learning about Drew and his thoughts behind why he throws these conferences will probably make you want to go. I know I'm pumped for it. You can find Drew at drew-haney.com, and you can find the Milk and Honey Supercars and Land Investing event at milkandhoney.land. And I think more importantly, what you'll learn here is some interesting philosophy around Drew, people, relationships, why he's growing his business. So without further ado, please enjoy this wide-ranging conversation with Drew Haney. Drew Haney, welcome to the show. How are you doing today, Drew?
Hey, Brandon, thanks for having me. And I know you flew today, so excited to talk to you when you're a little bit unfiltered and a little bit tired. And you're just finishing your day, right? 7 p.m. on the East Coast and 4 p.m. here.
That's right. I went from California to Manhattan. I was just in the New York Public Library. I was actually I knew it was a long shot, but I was looking for a spot in the New York Public Library where I could maybe do the podcast. I was thinking that would be the coolest angle, but instead I'm in my hotel, but we can pull that off. So
yeah, your background looks good. Most hotel rooms looks nasty, but that one looks decent.
Yeah, they've actually got this little red light in the background and everything. I know. When I started setting up the lighting, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm actually going to possibly pull this off here. I'll take it. Drew, you've flipped 300 desert squares. You've funded over 150 flips. Right now you're working on 6 or 7 subdivides. How did you get into land, and how did you get so deep into land? I mean, you've gone pretty hard. How long has it taken you to build up that type of resume?
Yeah, I started 4 years ago and I had a pretty slow start. So I started summer of 2020 and I didn't really know if the business model worked. So I didn't jump in with 2 feet. I think in the first 6 months, I bought 3 properties. And then at the very end of that first 6-month period, I had sold 1 or 2. And that's when I realized, wait a second, this actually works. I bought for 1,000, sold for 6,000. And it breaks your brain because I was making about 5K a month at the time from my day job. When you make 5K from a land deal that took you like 5 hours, it wrecks you forever, right?
Yeah.
And then I'm like, okay, this is a legitimate business model. How can I pour more time and more money into it to get a better return? And for me, the answer was to dump more money into the land.com listings because that was the bottleneck. And in the second 6 months, I think I sold somewhere between 30 to 50 properties. And then from there, I started hiring a team. I got the first business, Land of the Free. I got that down to 5 hours a week. And I did everything that Land Geek says to do. But I discovered something really interesting. Number one is when you have so much free time, you become like unfulfilled in a way, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I discovered that you can actually be unhappy and like super rich at the same time with a ton of free time. And then secondly, I discovered that just because my business was taking up, what's 5 out of 40? Is that 1/8 or something?
Yeah.
just because you have a business taking up 12% of your work week, it was still taking up 60% of my brain, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I felt like I really couldn't move on to bigger projects until I moved on totally, right? So I actually I sold all the assets, I sold the brand, sold all the notes, and I'm completely out of that business model now. And now I'm only doing funding higher dollar flips, and then funding subdivides, and then also operating my own subdivides.
Oh, wow. Okay. So that was a fairly big change. When did you sell that brand and that business?
So I sold a franchise of it last fall, September of last year. And then myself and the guy who bought the franchise were approached by another buyer, and both of us sold the brand and our assets to him. And now he controls and does all of it. And he also took the employees as well.
Wonderful.
And that was just last month.
Wow. Okay. Congratulations. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So that's a win. So now how's it feel to have that mental space freed up? Is it what you imagined it would be? And how's that affecting the new business angles?
Well, now I'm back to the original problem of I have a lot of free time now, and I've noticed my fulfillment has gone down because, at least for me, this is probably for most people, my contentment with my work is correlated to how often I'm in flow state, right? And I'm in flow state when I'm doing two things: when I'm working with business partners on complex deals, which I do often. But the second type of flow state, which I rarely do nowadays, which is just individual flow state when you're by yourself and you're 2 to 3, 4 hours later, you haven't taken a break, and it's because you're so deep into a task that really you've enjoyed doing. That's the kind of fulfillment that I haven't had in a long time. And it's really strange because I make a lot of money. Right now I'm working 15, 20 hours a week, but I want more, right? I don't want the lifestyle business. I want to be all in doing really big, complex deals. And I want to be the 8-year-old kid on the weekend building the Lego castle. Nobody says to the Lego castle kid, hey, you're working too much. Why are you working that much? Everyone knows that he's having fun. He's building something that he wants to build, right? So I'm not saying I want to work through the weekend and work at nights. I have 2 kids and a wife, and I spend very good quality time with them. But I do want it to be my only thing. I don't have any other hobbies. I'm not a weekend warrior. I don't do the Spartan races. I do my 6 a.m. CrossFit, and that's simply like my daily dose to optimize my brain. And I just want to work on bigger and better projects.
And so you're finding that through the subdivision deals and through the complexity of those? Was that where you're finding it?
Yeah, my 10 to 20-year goal is to be the guy who's building the skyscraper in downtown Oklahoma City, right?
Nice.
So you got to start small. Start with the vacant land minor subdivisions. We're actually probably going to build a couple houses on some of our subdivisions, so that's exciting. Then I'm meeting with a developer in Houston next week who wants me to be the GP on some of his condo, build to rent, and retail deals. He's building 2,000 houses right now in Houston, and he wants to train me so that I could be more involved in what he has going on. So right now I'm trying to evaluate, is this potential partnership with this guy, is it a shiny object, or is it like a mentorship that's going to take me to the next level?
And have you worked with them, or how'd you first meet him and get that type of opportunity?
I met him last year at a conference in Houston. It was a capital raising conference. It was actually Tim Mai's conference. Kendall was Tim Mai's protege.
Oh, okay.
So I met him there, and leaving the event, this guy, I'm not going to say the exact number, but he told me, I politely asked him how much money he made last year,
Mm-hmm.
and it was an 8-figure amount, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I left the event. I'm like, if I could learn from anyone, I want it to be that specific guy. And then 9 months later, he contacts me out of the blue and wants to meet with me. So that's pretty exciting.
That's fantastic. Have you ever heard of the book, The Surrender Experiment?
I have not.
It's a really interesting read. I just read it One of my mentors actually suggested it to me, but it's about a lot of it's about business connections and what you're talking about there, these ideas that come across your plate and you have these decision points of going down that path or weighing the opportunity cost. And I don't know anything about your situation, but in this guy's situation in the book, what he was doing was, I mean, that's the title of the book. He was finding these opportunities and just saying, if it's presented itself, I'm going to pull on that thread and follow it. He ended up becoming a billionaire, having a giant company. It was a software company. And just a really interesting story about this guy who was basically trying to operate in flow state at all times and just seeing what happened, saying yes to everything. I know that
Right.
you, in the beginning of this podcast, because I caught you a few hours ago or something, and was seeing if you wanted to do a podcast, or maybe it was yesterday, I don't know, but it was pretty quick. And you said, "Yeah, I say yes to stuff that looks interesting to me. I say yes, and I go do it." So, yeah, sounds like you've gotten pretty far with that strategy.
I think so. All these books, some of them, I feel like these books contradict each other. Some of them say you're supposed to have goals and this vision board, and you set milestones.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never done any of that. All I've
Mm-hmm.
done is work on what's fun. And usually I'm money motivated. So to me, what's fun is what makes a lot of money at the same time.
Yeah.
And so there's a second group of books that talk about, hey, work on passion projects, flow state stuff. Obviously, it needs to make money. But when you're doing what you're enjoying, you're going to be the best at it. You're going to be top 1% because nobody else could compete with you if you're the guy who actually enjoys what he's doing. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you love it. I was just having this conversation with my buddy yesterday. He's a dentist, and we were talking about me and him both have this drive to always be doing stuff, and so we battle with like how hard we're working versus how much we're having inner peace, and there's always this tension. And I brought up to him, I was like, one way to look at it is releasing a little bit of that all this judgment that we're working too hard, because it's just about how attached we are to the outcome. So if you're playing, let's say a video game is a good example, you're playing a video game, like you're trying as hard as you can, you're having a great time, but you're not going to cry if you lose, you're just
Right.
having a good time. And I feel that to me is an approach for business. Like I love trying really hard because I'm having fun. I'm having fun doing it. So I'm gonna try hard, but also I'm not super attached to whatever the outcome ends
Right.
up being. And it feels like a decent balance, I think, that way.
Yeah, it's like playing a board game. You're going to play to win, but if you lose, you're still going to have fun because you got to play the game.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when you switched into these minor subdivides, you're stepping your game up, or you're stepping the complexity of the problems up that you're working on to keep yourself motivated in that flow state. What's the difference in your team like versus when you were running flips? You mentioned you had your first hires, you had a team there. What's the difference in the team that you hire, the dynamic where you hire them, and that type of stuff?
Yeah, so it's actually really great. At the peak of the land business, I think I had up to 5 people at one point. Some of them were part-time. And then now I have one assistant.
Oh, wow.
It's absolutely wonderful. I love leading people, but it's also nice to be in a season of simplicity. And Kelly is 40 hours a week right now, and I don't track her hours. She's always, I know that she's working probably more than 40, but the thing that I like about her the most is that she's extremely available. So she's texting me at 10, 11 at night when I need information on stuff. I've called her at 6 a.m. on a Saturday before to help me find parking at LAX. And it's just really nice to have an employee that this is like her one thing.
Mm-hmm.
And she doesn't work 9 to 5, right? For her, she views work the same way I do, where it's just part of your lifestyle, right? And so I might work 4 hours and then I'm with the kids for 4 hours and I work 2 hours at night, and she's the same way.
That's great. How'd you find her?
HireMyMom.com.
Really? Okay. Interesting. I've never even heard of that site before. That's cool. And then for your other business, when you were hiring, you hired 5 people. How'd you go about finding those positions? Did you use any services, or was it just going on onlinejobs.ph, or what was the plan there?
The first one, she was a buyer lead. She was actually
Mhm.
buying desert land from me. And she did such a good job of researching the county regulations, and she was so independent. I was like, hey, you want to come help sell land for me? And so the very first position I outsourced was dispo. And then the admin assistant was actually her daughter. I hired a guy from Africa for a little bit. There's one or two. Oh, I had an acquisition manager who I did hire my mom. And there was one more temporary position that we had. And then Kelly came on as that first team was going away.
Okay. It sounds like you hire people who are really competent and self-regulating. Are you also a systems SOP type of person, or like a daily outputs? Are you measuring any of that, or are you just purely hiring on, you're just good at this and I trust you? Like, how's that
Yeah,
work for you?
the latter. There's no KPIs, there's no metrics. I tell them, I don't care if you nap during the day. I just want you to get your work done, right?
Mm-hmm.
The only KPI I follow is net income. That's it. And it's really nice in my brain. And I couldn't imagine following KPIs every month. I'd be so stressed. I'd be like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I made less money this month than last month. Because I feel like if you track trends like that, you get too down into the weeds. I just track annual income. That's it. And I don't even know how much money I made last year because I haven't done my taxes yet. I know the range, but my focus has been prioritizing learning over earning, right? And so I just really want to work on projects that I'll learn a lot, and I know eventually the money will come. And I feel like if you track KPIs too closely, you miss that. You miss the big picture.
Mm-hmm. So you're focused on, laser focused, it sounds like, on building the relationships, learning, doing the thing, and let everything else just fall into place how it will.
Yeah, building high level skill sets that are rare and building high level relationships that last a lifetime. If you could do those two things, you could forget about any other KPI. You're never going to outspend your income. It's all going to fall into place if your North Star is learning and growing.
That
And
is,
you're in the right business.
Have you done the wrong business before?
I did day trading. I've messed with rentals. I mean, there are some businesses where it's just really hard. I guess you could sell ice cream on the street and your margins, you're taking something that costs you 50 cents, selling it for $5. But how scalable is that, right?
Mm-hmm.
I guess you could scale anything. But yeah, I think land is a great vehicle. I don't think it's this unicorn business model, but I do think it's better than most business models.
Yeah. I laughed when you said day trading and single family rentals, because I did both those too. So that's why I gave it a little laugh. Yeah. I feel like land is a good vehicle for a general entrepreneur. There's a ton to learn. You can go deep into a lot of different niches, and a lot of it's relationship based. So what do you think? You mentioned high level skills, which a really cool way to think about it. Are you looking at those high level skills as the development aspect, or what other specific high level
Yeah.
skills are you interested in?
Yeah, I'm talking more about development. So being a deal maker, putting together complex projects. And if you think about what a development deal is, it's just a bunch of contracts that you daisy chain together,
Mm-hmm.
right? You make sure the county talks to the general contractor and you run all your numbers, you have a financial analyst. You're just getting all these professionals to sit at the same table and you get compensated for essentially starting that meetup, right? And there's risk, there's massive risk. But the thing about I like about development is you could build a 3-story building or a 30-story building. From a developer's perspective, it's the same amount of work, but you make 10 times more. From the general contractor's perspective, it is 10 times more work because you have to build 10 times more floors, right? But from a developer's perspective, you still have just one GC to talk to and one county rep, one city rep, one code guy. So that's kind of the skill set I'm focused on right now. But I don't know, 5 years from now, maybe I'm opening a lollipop factory in rural Kansas. Who knows?
I like it. What barriers to entry are there to building skyscrapers. Like you're saying 3 stories, the same as 30-story. Is it just the person who puts the deal together, or is there some relationships that need to be built over time with the city or the local government, or what other
Yeah.
angles are there?
I think there's massive barriers to entry, and that's why the margins are so much fatter, right?
Mhm.
This guy I'm seeing next week in Houston, he told me yeah, at my level, there's nobody. Yeah, there's some competitors, but there's like 2 of us in the city right now.
Yeah.
And there's massive barriers to entry. And I think there's 2 ways you can climb up rung by rung, like I've been doing. But then sometimes you can skip a few rungs on the ladder by meeting the right person, right? The right person that will introduce you to the right people. All of a sudden, before you know it, you're sitting down with the mayor of Houston, having dinner with them. Mayor of Houston has this vacant parcel of land he wants you to do a project on. He already knows the general contractor that you should work with. Before you know it, you're building a building, and you didn't really plan it, right? It was
Mhm.
all from knowing the right people.
Are you focused on Texas, the Golden Triangle, or I think you mentioned Oklahoma as well somewhere along the way. Where are you operating?
I've done deals in over 30 states. Most of them have been flips. I have subdivides in South Carolina, Tennessee, Oklahoma, Texas, Arizona. Most of those I'm just funding, but I am fairly involved in like a weekly sync, kind of doing some high level advisory and coaching stuff. But I really have no preference to geographic area. And I do believe that the more red tape there is, the fatter the margins because less people want to mess with it. So if you think about a society, as a society ages, there's more and more rules, right? They create more and more rules. So if you think about Europe, which is way older than the United States, they probably have so much red tape to develop it, right? But I bet the few guys that are doing it are making a killing,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And I'm sure you have to schmooze the precinct mayor and know all the right people, but I don't see any jurisdiction as something that's off limits. I just see it as a spectrum, and a place that's easier to do deals will have thinner margins, and a place that's harder to do deals will have fatter margins.
Yeah, I see a lot of people drawn to Texas because of the simple subdivide rules, but I can see how that's a double-edged sword where it's like there's probably a ton of people, ton of competition. I mean, that's actually an interesting question. Let me ask you this. In places that are so busy, like some parts of Florida, Texas, the Golden Triangle, why do you think it is that there's still so many land deals? Is there just so much land that it doesn't matter how much competition there's just not enough competition to fill it? Or how do you see competition in real hot markets?
Do you know Josiah Ronco?
I don't.
So he should be your next interview. He did $4 million last year in revenue, and he only does Florida.
Interesting.
That's
Wow.
it. And so the whole competition, what's it called when the niche is going away? A saturation.
Mhm.
All of those were issues I was worried about 3 years ago. But since then, I've just seen so many examples of businesses doing extremely well in niches that are supposedly saturated, right? So go to your local donut shop, sit in the donut shop for an hour, and just watch what they're doing. They're literally selling white bread covered in sugar
Yeah.
and like really shitty coffee. Think
Yeah.
about it. And they're fine. They're making money, right? And they've been there for 30 years. They've got outdated tables with scratches in them. They've got their drink inventory sitting in the corner. They haven't even unboxed it yet. And this is like the oldest business model ever, and they're fine, right?
Mhm.
So I think the concern over saturation, I think the root of it is scarcity mindset. Take your car to CarMax. You're going to get an offer at 50 cents on the dollar. They're
Yeah.
doing the same thing we are, right? So, sure, if the land business goes away, I'm just as happy selling ice cream on the street than I am doing what I'm doing now because I just want to do deals. I just want to convince complete strangers to send me money. It's like the best high you can get, right?
Yeah. Have you ever sold ice cream on the street? What'd you do when you were a kid? You mow lawns, or what was your craziest business as a kid?
I mowed some lawns. I did some babysitting. Worked at a summer camp. I worked in the produce department of a grocery store. I worked at the garden department of Home Depot. I just liked working, making money.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you've always been drawn to that. And where are you from, or where'd you grow up?
Chicago suburbs.
Okay, interesting. And what was it that first got you into land? You said it was somewhere around 2020. What caught your eye?
Yeah, so I just given up 5 years of day trading. I had lost half my net worth overnight, literally overnight in the March flash crash of 2020. And I was like, I'm done. This is horrible. So I finally gave up. I threw in the towel. And then a month after I officially gave up, the academy that I paid $50,000 to teach me how to day trade, they were sued by the federal government for essentially over promising and under delivering. And so then I was like, okay, so it's not me. It wasn't me that was doing it wrong. And then I was super sad for 2 months because I was commuting to work. I was in a cubicle, I had a boring job. And I thought, is this it? I just go to work every day and slowly die and live for the weekend, start brewing beer in my basement and become one of those hobby guys, right?
Hmm.
And that's when I found land. My buddy Eric Wong, Special Forces Army officer, yeah, I tripled my money on every deal. He was doing desert stuff too, so
Yeah.
tripling your money is pretty normal. And coming from day trading, I was like, how is that possible? And who's going to buy this? It's such a weird thing to buy in the middle of the desert, right? But I tried it and it immediately started working. And so got hooked from there, quit my day job a year later. And since then, it's been a lot of fun.
Do you have? I've seen quite a few military people in the land business. Is that word of mouth, or is that a natural affinity that people from the military have for the land business? Like, what's the deal with that?
I think the military is just because there's a lot of us. It's the
Mhm.
largest employer in the country, right? Actually, in the world. But the one I can't figure out is the firefighters.
Mhm.
Why is there so many firefighters in this niche? Because is there that many firefighters? Maybe there is, but there's a lot of them in this niche.
I've got an answer for that one. I've got 5 firefighter buddies, and they all have random side hustles. I know that firefighters are
Oh,
always
because they have
looking
so
for
much time.
they got so much time off. They work 3 days and they got 4 days off, and so they're like you, it's okay, I'm bored with the time, I wanna do something. So
Right.
they're one of my buddies has he refurbished this 1950s fire truck, and he gives tours around Monterey. He, like, goes and honks the horn and takes people around by the ocean. But anyway, yeah, those guys are all looking for side hustles, so they
That
find
makes
land.
sense. That makes sense.
Yeah, um, very cool. So with the conferences and things like that, you've mentioned relationships, and it sounds like conferences are mainly relationship based. You're not really trying to make money, but you're trying to meet people, build deeper relationships. Talk a little bit about how you got into conferences, what they mean to you, and that type of thing.
Yeah, good question. I think my first one was in Seoul, Korea, actually. There was 10 of us, all Americans. We flew over. And it was just a bunch of guys who wanted to wanted to bond, right? I think inside of each man is the desire to be in a metaphorical foxhole or trench and go to war with someone, right? And we can't do that in modern society. If you take a rifle and you attack someone, you get in big trouble, right? But we can do that metaphorically with the land business by having people next to us that are going through the same struggles, the same challenges. And so this South Korea event was the first paid one. I did a free one before that. South Korea was the first paid one, and it was easily the top 5 moments of my life was just hanging out with those guys in Korea. We finished the last night, we're smoking Cuban cigars on the Han River, which is it's like their version of Mississippi. And it was just such a wonderful experience that I'll never forget. And then these guys, you see them again. I see these guys once a quarter easily. I was just at Ajay's wedding last week, and you see the same guys Then I planned Puerto Rico with Dave Deniston and Jaron Barnes. And then we have the Supercard land investing event in a few weeks. So I'm excited about that. That will be the biggest one I've done in terms of attendance. And really, we just want to gather people. We want to learn with each other, and we want to run with each other and do deals with each other for the next 5, 10, 20 years.
Wow. I'm so pumped to come to the Supercars and Land event now. I was just going to it. I haven't been to an event, and this one I stumbled upon. I was like, let's see what happens. But now I'm pumped. I really like the
Yeah,
sound
get
of that.
excited.
That's
I don't
cool.
know how this happened, but every single influential land person that I wanted there had said yes in terms of keynote speakers and panelists. I had 100% yes rate. I don't know how, like, I didn't do anything magical, but we have everyone that's important to me is there. And day one will be mostly talks. We open beer cooler at lunch. And so this will be the first land conference that I know of where you can drink a beer at your table in the afternoon. So that's exciting. And then day two, we drive supercars. We have cold plunges. We have saunas. I think I'm going to add an event called Chat GPT Rap Battles. I think it's actually like going to be on the schedule where people are going to be a few drinks in at that point. We'll schedule for 2 or 3 p.m. And you get your app out and you just have it write a rap for you. And you like people judge you on how well you perform it. Right.
Oh my gosh. This is
Because
fantastic.
we did that in Korea. Buck Risley did that in Korea. It was so awesome. So what else are we doing on day two? On day one, we have a hike. Yeah, it's just a lot of fun stuff going on, and a lot of good people will be there, and just want to have fun.
That's great. Yeah, I saw the lineup, and it's like basically everyone I've seen online for the last year is going to be there.
Yeah.
Like all the different businesses, all the pieces of the puzzle, all the different. Yeah, so that's great. That's great.
I think the key, if you're ever going to plan one, the key is you got to get a big name to say yes first.
Mhm.
And then you go to the other big names and you say, hey, Callan's a speaker at this event. You want to come too? And then they don't want to miss out. And
Yeah.
I even had a guy, Clint originally said no, Clint Turner, because his wife just had a baby.
Yeah.
And then months later, he's, Drew, you got any room for me? I really want to come.
Yeah.
And so he's not a keynote speaker, but he is doing a talk on Saturday on day two. So we're excited about that.
That's wonderful. It makes me a lot more excited knowing the kind of the vibe behind it. I was just picturing like another conference that I've been to, but knowing the goal behind it and people getting to know each other, I'm really pumped now. Also, what I liked, you were talking about the camaraderie that people build. It's how it's hard for us to have that common battle these days. Have you ever heard the term misogi?
No.
It's a Japanese term. It's something the samurai used to do, but like the samurai master would take the samurai and he'd put him in an ice cold waterfall, and you don't know how long you're going to be there. You just sit there until the samurai master says you're free. That's the original term, but it's become like more of a term of doing something really hard. But me and my buddies have a annual misogi where we try to do something where it's hard enough that we have a 50-50 chance of pulling it off. And it can't necessarily be measurable. It can't be like running 10 miles in a certain amount of time. It has to be unmeasurable and just probably not going to pull it off. So this last year it was the rim to rim at the Grand Canyon, where you start at one side, go down, go up the other side, back down and back across. It's 45 miles or something like that, just all at once.
Okay.
But I ruptured my Achilles. Yeah, so I didn't get to do it. That was in May. They just finished it.
You ruptured it before the event.
Training for it.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
I was training so hard that it got all weak, and I blew it playing soccer actually. But anyway, the point is that I resonate with the idea of people finding ways to work on hard stuff together. I think that's like a lost thing. We don't get that as much as we could, and through business is a great angle.
What's fascinating is they're finding through research is that really healthy things in your brain happen when you do hard things that you don't want to do. And so that's why I do CrossFit every morning. I hate cardio. It's horrible. I hate it. And every morning I wake up and I don't want to go, but I have a rule where I'm not allowed to think between 5:15 a.m. and 6 a.m. There's no thinking allowed. It's just mechanical. Just go through your systems and get there and walk in the door.
Mhm.
And it's like supercharges my day, right? And cold plunge is in the same category, like marathons, anything you can do that's just really miserable. It's really good for your brain.
Do you have a cold plunge? Have you done that often or?
I'm almost like if you got me a few drinks in and you put the buy link in front of me, like
Uh-huh.
I would immediately press buy.
Yeah, I feel you. I was a couple years ago, I had it. I was doing one. You can buy a Costco freezer, a chest freezer, one like
Mhm.
a meat locker
Convert it.
basically. And you don't even have to convert it. You just fill it with water and turn it on. And then when it starts, you get ice across the top, turn it off and leave it off for a couple days. You don't have to overthink a cold plunge. There you
Yeah.
can get a cheap one. I filled it with meat though, and it was almost like I did it on purpose, I think, because I didn't want to do the cold plunge anymore. So like
Yeah.
subconsciously, I'm like, oh, if I fill it with meat, then I don't have to do it. So I haven't done it in years, and I hate it. Hate it.
Yeah.
But like you're saying, sometimes you got to do stuff you hate. That's why I liked doing it because I hate it.
You get a 2.5x increase in dopamine above baseline. It's the same as cocaine. Cocaine gets you the same high. The difference is that cold plunge is spread out over 3 hours and cocaine is within 30 minutes, right?
Oh wow.
So it's a really healthy. I feel like we need to be searching for healthy ways to get high.
Hmm.
So exercise, meditation, cold plunge, connecting with our spouses, all of those things I think we should be actively pursuing. And it's not selfish to do that because
Hmm.
when you're getting high in a healthy way, it's almost always making the people around you much better.
Yeah, do you feel like optimizing yourself or becoming like spending time to make yourself your full self is good for the people around you as well?
Yeah, of course. When I go to CrossFit, I'm not grumpy. I'm not a jerk to my wife.
Mhm.
I'm nice to Kelly, right? Kelly very politely told me one time, she basically said, when I don't go to CrossFit, I'm a jerk.
Nice.
So you're serving those around you when you take care of yourself.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah. As we come towards the end of the podcast here, I'll give you a chance to drop some final thoughts. But one question I like to ask people is if you could post one message on X or Twitter, all of Twitter could see it, what would you say to people?
So I feel like this is like a classic thing, but for me, I just started doing which is a gratitude journal. When I started doing gratitude journal a few weeks ago, I immediately realized that I'm living the life that I already want to be living. And so now my reason for trying to get to the next level is because the next level is a lot of fun, not because the level I'm on right now is somehow inferior, right? And so what do I really want to do? I want to work on fulfilling projects and I want to have quality time with my wife and kids. And I'm doing that right now, right? I'm not making $10 million a year like I want, but the income I have right now is more than enough to pay for our expenses many times over. And I think just being grateful for the season that you're in is the key to happiness.
Do you think your happiness will increase when you nail it to 10 million, or you think it's just the same thing, different challenge?
I think research very clearly shows that once your base expenses are paid for, there's zero correlation between income and happiness. But I think as humans, we were designed to always be pursuing excellence and always be getting better and better at our craft. And so I think if I were to stay at the level I'm at right now, I would become unfulfilled very quickly. I think we're designed to get better and better at what we do. And usually when you get better at what you do, you make money. It's a lagging indicator, right?
Yeah. So just enjoy the process and grind it out. I like it.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts for people listening to the podcast? Thoughts about land or business, life, family?
Just have fun. It's not always going to be fun. There's going to be seasons that really suck, especially the listeners. If you have a W-2 right now, you're doing full-time land business and got wife, kids, like that sucks. I've been through it. I was Army Reserve officer, full-time W-2, full-time land business. It was very difficult. And that season was about a year long. And I think it's okay to go through those seasons, but I think overall our life should be working on fun projects. It's not supposed to be miserable all the time. Those seasons I think are necessary, but they should be temporary.
I like it. Where's the best place for people to find you online, Drew?
Drew-Haney.com. I'm on Facebook, Drew Haney. I'm on Instagram, Drew Haney 318. You can email me, drew@drew-haney.com. I don't have anything to sell. I just want to do deals and learn stuff. I guess I could sell tickets. That's like the one thing I've ever sold is tickets to events. So milkhoney.land is the event that we have June 28th and 29th. Would love to have you. And yeah, we have probably 30 more tickets until we sell out. So just excited to see people and meet new faces.
Yeah, I'll be at the milkhoney.land event, supercars and land and cold plunges and wrapping and the whole thing. I can't wait. Thank you for coming on the show today, Drew. Pleasure to meet you. And until next time, my friends, see you later.
Yeah, thanks, Brandon.